Welcome back to ESBR Boxing in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk. I'm delighted as always to be joined by Greg, and we're here reacting to what we've just seen at the Co-op Arena in Manchester as JAZZA Dickens has produced what the bookies consider to be an upset as he's beaten domestic rival ZELFA Barrett by unanimous decision in over 10 rounds in the super featherweight division. Greg, first of all, I hope you're well. Let's jump straight into it. We were speaking there kind of briefly off camera and the other day about it was quite unusual how Zelfa Barrett was such a big favourite for this fight. A lot of people thought it'd be closer, and ultimately it was with JAZZA Dickens getting the win. What are your thoughts on what just occurred, and how did it live up to what you were expecting before this fight?
Yeah, great to speak to you as always, Niall. I'll be honest with you now. I thought Silva Barrett really should win the fight. I just thought tall, rangy, less miles on the clock. Um, Probably a style that is a bit wrong for Jazza Dickens. Long, aims at the body. But Jazza did really well. I think it was a fairly uneventful fight. And I'm not being disrespectful, but like I say, I think both guys were more concerned about what was coming back rather than doing their best work. Jazza Dickens took the initiative. He dealt with it in a great manner, and for me, he probably just deserved to win at the end. I think that I said to one of the boys that I was talking to earlier, I said rounds could really go any way. There's nothing significant happening in them apart from maybe I think it was round 6 or 7 that Barrett um, briefly hurt him, but it was only I would say maybe 9 and 10 that I kind of thought Jazz is just pulling away with this a wee bit. But up until then, Niall, I just thought it's a fight that kind of disappointed me a little bit, if I have to be honest.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the most eventful fight that you'll ever watch. As you say, early on there was not a lot in the rounds. But Jazza was probably just nicking them, and as you say, towards the end, he kind of left Selfa with too much to do. I've always been a fan of Jazza Dickens. I think he's a very clever, smart boxer, quite underrated at times.
Yeah,
His only losses coming in big fights, world title fights to Galahad and Rigondeaux, just to name a few. One thing you touched on there, you said, which is I'd have to agree with, both were kind of afraid, both men looked kind of afraid of what was coming back. Do you think? With there being more pressure on Zelfa Barrett to win this fight, that's what kind of contributed to that type of performance from him. Jazza Dickens fights how he fights. He's always the kind of defensive kind of counter puncher. But do you think that the pressure of being a hefty favourite kind of weighed on Barrett there, in your opinion?
I do now. I think it's a good question to ask because Barrett's the matchroom fighter. He wants to go on and fight for titles. And if I'm being honest, I think it's one of two things. I think the pressure was on him, and I also think he thought himself that, I should probably walk through Jazza Dickens tonight. I should probably get to him at some point. Very, very good fighter. Jazza throws 3 and 4s at the one time, can be very awkward to pin down, but he's got a bit of miles on the clock now. And I think that maybe Barrett thought that and thought, I'll get him at some point. And before you know it, this guy maybe sneaks around, sneaks another round, sneaks another round, and you're not even hurt. You don't even notice. And you go back to the corner and Pat Barrett's in your ear going, listen, son, you're 4 down. And you think, I've got to turn it around. And then it becomes desperation stages now. You're trying to do things that aren't natural to your work, and the fight gets away from you. And I kind of think that's what happened, to be honest. But give Jazza Dickens his flowers. He done really, really well. And I'm a very, very respected guy in boxing. Like I said to you off camera, from my days in the amateurs, I've known or heard of Jazza for years, fighting in the amateur scene, the Great British Championships, representing England. I remember it all. So it's not a shock to me how good he is. He's a talented boy, but he's got a lot of miles on the clock, which I think that Barrett might regret not taking advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. Very talented fighter. And as you say, to kind of segue that into my next kind of point before we wrap up, Jazza does have a lot of miles on the clock, two failed world title fights. Let's talk about now what's next for Jazza Dickens after that. That win now will put him in a very decent position for, fights going forward. Do you think he's in the mix for world title fights now? And how would you see him kind of get on in that kind of landscape with champions such as Navarrete, Foster, Lamont Roach, those type of fighters. Because Barrett held a high world ranking with a couple of governing bodies, so JAZZA Dickens will be right in line for big fights now, surely.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, Niall. They will be. And if I'm being honest with you, I feel like I'm disrespecting Jazza, but I'm not because I'm saying that I really rate him. But timing's everything in boxing. If I'm if I'm looking after Jazza, I'm maybe going back after the IBO. I think he lost that. Was it his last fight that he lost?
Yeah.
He lost it. Go back for that. The IBO, it's not a big recognised world title, but it opens doors up. I mean, there's a lot of great fighters who've held the IBO. Manny Pacquiao's held the IBO. Ricky Hatton's held the IBO. You know, it's a title that will get you a bit of respect, although it's not classed as the most the most favourable world title. We've got the four big governing bodies, and then it's the IBO after that. So I think go after that. Try and get a bit of confidence. See if you can overturn that decision. If you overturn that, throw him in with a big boy. Get him a payday in his career. And see how it goes. But that's probably the route I would go down now because at this moment in time, I don't like any of those other names for him.
Yeah, the IBO is a good kind of suggestion there, of course. I believe Kakachi still holds the IBO, doesn't he? So he's fighting Lee Wood. So it'll be interesting to see. Jazza Dickens has beaten Lee Wood before. So if Lee Wood
Yeah,
was to come through that, that'd be an interesting rematch, most definitely.
yeah,
Just quickly before we wrap up, of course, touching on the man who came up short, ZELFA Barrett. What's next for him? It's going to be tough to come back from this one.
you're right, Niall. I'm trying to think where ZELFA goes from here. I don't think he needs to retire. I mean, yeah, he's what 31, 32 now. The only reason I know that's because I seen the 1993 tattoo on his
Yeah.
sternum. Um, um, he's got avenues out there, but I think it's maybe going to be at British level to maybe look at trying to win a British title or maybe a level that's just slightly above that. But I think anything in a world title or maybe even a European might be a step too far unless he gets gifted an opportunity by a good up and coming European fighter. So I think he maybe needs to try and maybe look at the British title or something of a domestic rivalry.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I don't think he needs to really call it a day yet. Have one more go
Yeah.
at it and see what happens. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what's next for both men. That's all we have time for on this one. Just myself and Greg giving a reaction to what we've just seen from Manchester, England, the Co-op Arena, as Jazza Dickens has upset the bookies' odds to defeat his domestic rival ZELFA Barrett over 10 rounds by unanimous decision to surely leave himself on the verge of some fairly big fights for the Scouse man. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. What did you make of that fight? Were you kind of as underwhelmed as we were? And what did you make of both men's performances? And what do you think is next? Can Jazza make another push for a world title, whether it be the IBO or another? And what's next for Zelfa Barrett? Let us know what you think in the comments. And as always, don't forget, we'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button on the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing, and follow us on all social media platforms. Greg, it was a pleasure, and until next time, take care.
Thanks, now. Cheers, lad.